Episode 121, the last episode, like several others before it, achieved an audience of more than 1 million people throughout the week. There's nothing on British television or on European television or on North American television that comes anything close to that kind of audience. So you are in a select band of the smartest people on the planet. If you're watching as well as listening on my Facebook page, then please press share now to confound Mr. Algorithm, who's forever lurking in the corridors. If you're watching on my YouTube channel, please subscribe if you are, or on RT's multiple YouTube channels. A big welcome to you if you are one of those back now on Instagram, on Twitch, on Telegram, on all these different visual platforms. A very big welcome to you. But if you are listening on radio, on 105.5 in the Washington, D.C. area, you'll be listening in crystal clarity on FM. And if you're listening on AM, coast to coast across the United States, again, a big welcome to you. It's a jam-packed show tonight for obvious reasons. There's a lot happening in the world. Some of it sublime, some of it ridiculous. Let's start with the ridiculous. There's a fit and proper person test before you can take over a British, or for that matter, European football club, and some pretty rum characters have passed that test. And just to make it clear that there's nothing anti-Arab or anti-Muslim about what I'm going to say, I cannot understand how Roman Abramovich has been allowed to own Chelsea for all these years, not least because the British authorities don't seem keen to allow him even into the country to watch them. I don't know why American billionaires were allowed to take over my club, Manchester United, dumping shares this week before the Newcastle United takeover news broke and everybody else's share price fell markedly. They dumped hundreds of millions of dollars worth of their own shares, still retaining overall control of the company, of course. The share price of Manchester United has fallen significantly, so the Glazers managed to sell just in time. A remarkable coincidence. I don't know why other American billionaires are able to own a great working class Northern English institution like Liverpool Football Club. I was literally alone. I could not find anybody interested in the news last season that a member of the Saudi royal family had bought full control of Sheffield United Football Club in the English Premiership. So there's a whole lot of hypocrisy. These are not the only levels of hypocrisy involved in the hue and cry from liberal journalists and the commentariat about the Saudi royal family now buying for £305 million the great national institution of Newcastle United. There's a lot of hypocrisy because most of these commentators have had nothing to say about the examples I've already given. And virtually all of them will be at the sports washing fiesta next year in Qatar when the World Cup is transferred there to the Middle East, to the Persian Gulf, where it's baking hot for the first time in history. And the attitudes of the countries in the Persian Gulf are not dissimilar to the attitudes of the Saudi Arabian dictatorship, although maybe by degree. And that degree may very well prove critical in the course of the debate that we're going to have this evening on this subject. The Saudi royal family is one thing, Prince Mohammed bin Salman quite another. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has been found guilty by the whole of the international community, including their best friends in the United States, including from their best friend, Donald J. Trump, to be a murderer, a mutilator. Literally. Prince MBS, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, has been found by the United States government to have personally been involved in the murder of a journalist of the Washington Post in their own consulate in Istanbul in Turkey. They didn't just lure him to the embassy. They didn't just murder him. They then literally sawed him into little pieces and refuse even now that they have admitted that he was murdered on their premises to say what they did with his remains. And the international community has fairly and squarely blamed the man who now owns Newcastle United for a crime heinous in the extreme. It's not the only crime, of course, of which he's guilty. He's guilty of far bigger crimes in Syria, in Yemen, against his own people, against even his own relatives, whom he hanged upside down in a 7-star hotel until the money fell out of their pockets and he filched it, all in the name of an anti-corruption drive, of course. I would argue that this puts MBS in a different league, if you'll forgive the pun, from all of the others that have strangely passed the fit and proper person test to own a British football club. Now, I didn't oppose this takeover because of the hypocrisy involved. After all, if MBS is so bad, why are we selling him weapons? If MBS is so bad, why are we sending military officers to help him prosecute his war against the people next door in Yemen? If MBS is so bad, how come he's allowed to invest in all kinds of other, some of them very surprising, enterprises in Britain, in America, and across Europe? And if a Saudi royal can own Sheffield United without anyone saying a word against it, how can you stop the people of Newcastle from breaking free of their own local autocrat, the owner that has just been bought out? The people of Newcastle have suffered a lot under the previous ownership of the football club. But they are now owned by people who are exponentially more wealthy than the owners of any football club in the world. The owners of Manchester City, from the tyrannical United Arab Emirates, are worth 22 billion, a lot of money in anybody's money, anybody's language. But the people who've now bought Newcastle United are worth 700 billion pounds. By a long stretch, Newcastle United are now richer than all the other football teams in the world put together, which is going to, well, alter the course, some might say distort the course of football, the working class game that we exported to the world very considerably indeed. So there are many aspects to this. And we're asking in a poll, it's already out there, should countries, should foreign entities be allowed to buy football clubs at all? My answer is no, because football is more than a business. As we discovered during the lockdown, football is an essential part of national life, not just in our country here in Britain, but in many countries around the world. If war is too important to be left to generals, then football is too important to be left to billionaire owners thousands of miles away, many of whom are not even sure of the shape of the ball the people they employ are kicking. There'll be much debate on this in the course of the next 3 hours. We'll be talking to a Knight of the Realm and a Nobel Prize winner. It's not often that a show can say that. Professor Sir John Curtis is the Dean of Psephologists, the Prince of Polls. There's nothing about the movements of public opinion that he does not study and form a very considered, scientifically calibrated view about. Having said that, I have frequently doubted if he was right in his calibration of the level of support for the breakup of the United Kingdom. As it happens, the polls have begun to turn in favour of my side of the argument. And as I said earlier in Jim Davidson's immortal words, you look down and the audience begins to disappear over the years, row by row. 326 people marched in the city of Glasgow on Saturday in what was billed as the capital letters Big March for Scottish independence. 326. Only a couple of years ago, these campaigners were claiming six-figure sums, six-figure numbers for the attendance at their events. We'll hear what Sir John thinks about the prospects for Scottish separatism. We'll be talking to RT's own, the awesome Afsan Ratansi, on the Pandora's box that we first lifted last weekend. You'll remember it was just an hour or so before we came on air that the news dropped across the world about a new Pandora's box. After the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, along came the Pandora's box. Now, there were a number of things that were suspicious automatically about the Pandora's box. Although 300 politicians were fingered, all of them deservedly, and I hope they all go to hell as a result. But they were 300 politicians from a certain part of the world, or a certain relationship to the United States and the power in the Western world. No American politicians or businessmen were found in the Pandora's box. A remarkable state of affairs, you might say. And very few British politicians or businessmen were found in the Pandora's box either. But one in particular was. Tony Blair, the former Middle East peace envoy, to his amazement, his total surprise, turned out to have purchased a company offshore from an unknown party who turned out to be the now deceased former Prime Minister of Bahrain. Neither the Prime Minister of Bahrain nor Mr. Blair knew that they were buying and selling to and from each other. And Mr. Blair was then the proud owner of a multi-million-pound property in the Marylebone Road on which he avoided £312,000 in British taxation. That's the British taxation that pays, amongst other things, for the Metropolitan Police, That's the Metropolitan Police, who for the last 15 years nearly have been paying every penny of the personal protection of the very same Tony Blair, who's guarded round the clock by officers of the Metropolitan Police, paid for by the taxpayer, whom the Blairs have just, entirely legally, of course, cheated out of £312,000. Angry? Moi? And we'll be talking about Donald Trump and somebody called Keir Starmer. Special K, he called himself. Special Agent K, maybe. Although he actually didn't say that, or he did say it, but he didn't mean it. It was a joke, and then it wasn't a joke. The mask has well and truly slipped off the face of Sir Keir Starmer, and the opinion polls prove it. And if I've got the chance, I'll ask Professor Sir John Curtis about that. And not least, the noble art of giving out Nobel Prizes. Satire died, of course, when Henry Kissinger was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It died again, if you can die twice, when Barack Obama was given the award, and given it before he'd even begun work as the United States President. I'm not sure who'll get the Nobel Peace Prize next. Maybe the owner of Newcastle United. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, but we will be talking to a real pucker Nobel Prize winner for chemistry. And I understand everything about his work, but I'll ask him to explain it to you in layman's terms. Layman's terms, layperson's terms, for the benefit of British Airways. It's all coming up.